Hi, and welcome to the new year and a new episode of Soul Sessions. So, today is a very special episode for me because I'm going to be talking about what it means to be a Black Latina to me, not to anybody else, just to me, and kind of what that looks like, and some history, some of my personal development, professional development, and kind of just my thoughts and feelings about my experiences and how this has gone for me and the journey of really loving my identity. I think it's important before I start this episode is to give a little disclaimer of no experience with these identities is the same. My experience is going to be different from another person's experience, and another person's experience is going to be different from the next person. But I think it's important that sometimes we all get like kind of clumped together into these one big, you know, blob. And I want to recognize that we're different people, we're individuals, and we all have different experiences, although our stories might be similar. And some of those experiences might be similar, but they might affect us differently. We might take them differently. We're going to view them differently, obviously, because we're individuals. And I think I really want to start this episode with talking about what, why I named this episode what I did. So, the name of this episode is La Negra Tiene Tumbao, which is a song by Celia Cruz, who was a Cuban artist who was Afro-Latina. She was darker skinned. She had Afro features. And one thing in college I took a music history class, and I decided we did a segment on Latin American music, and I decided to do my project on her, and I learned so much about her. She's been a staple of my childhood because my mom listens to her songs a lot. But it's also been super cool to see her story. And she used to have a TV show on Netflix called Celia, and I watched it. It's a telenovela, and it was a beautiful, beautiful kind of series about her life and the obstacles she overcame. But I think it's important to name the episode what I did because Celia lived her life authentically. She never changed who she was. She owned that she was an Afro Latina. She was in your face about it, and she was able to find so much success in being herself. And I think that's kind of the message of today's episode is to be yourself, however that looks, however that feels, as long as it feels authentic to you. That's what really matters. And I think that's what I've learned, in my identity exploration of myself. And I think it's important to kind of talk about how that came to be. So I think I've mentioned like a million times at this point, but I am Puerto Rican. My mom is Puerto Rican. My dad is black. Like, and I think one of the interesting things for me is that I really didn't grow up too much in my black culture, as I was raised primarily by my mom, and she is very Latin, very very Latin, very very Latin. Um, so I got a lot of the Latino features. Plátanos and rice and beans and pork chops and sancocho, like all that stuff. Love it, learn it, amazing. So I spent a lot of my childhood very deeply involved in my Latin roots. Um, I think something that's interesting to me that I've kind of, but at the same time, I will say this, at the same time, I was always very in touch with my black culture because I was so different from my Latin culture at the same time. And not different as in like, I was different for a lot of reasons, but I think the main reason is that my mom is very fair skinned, and she is, she might she won't say she's white passing, but I'm going to say she's technically white passing when it comes to skin color, hair. She wears her hair straight. My grandmother, her mom looks German. So I think a lot of my family looks like we're a pretty wide range, but my immediate family of my mom, my brother, and my grandma look very white passing. So I look drastically different from some of my family members. Primarily, I'm thinking more of my mom. I think I think we look like. She doesn't think so, but I think we have like the same smile and stuff. But like my skin is darker, my hair is different. I'm taller. I just look different from her. And sometimes when you're walking in grocery stores or things of that nature, people always ask me like, "What's your dad? What are you mixed with?" That's a question I get all the time. And I think it's important to kind of say that Latinos are a mix of everything. First of all, like we're indigenous, we're black, Spanish, white, and that is at the kind of negative consequence of colonization and all sorts of things. But specifically with Puerto Ricans are in the Caribbean. First of all, Puerto Rico's in the Caribbean, and Puerto Rico was a slave port at one time. So there's a lot of Afro influence in Puerto Rico. So although my mom might not look, you know, kind of fit that mold, I think something that was really eye opening for me in the last few years is I, when I was in college, I did an adult development class and I had to look at my grandparents. So I had like pictures of all four of them, and my two grandfathers, my mom's dad and my dad's dad, look very similar. They both look like black men, and I think that's something that we kind of miss in Latin culture is that like although like in America we are seen, specifically Afro Latinos are seen as black people, no matter, because unfortunately the reality is that we're judged based off our skin color at first, and when you're darker skinned, you have a certain hair texture, certain features. I feel like you automatically get written off in a way. And when I looked at these pictures, I was like, oh my god, like this is crazy to kind of see that I really have two black grandparents. But then I compare my grandmothers, and that's a whole different story. So I think that speaks to kind of the mix that I am really. And the other thing is, like, when I look, again, I look similar to a lot of my family members, but different at the same time. Because my hair texture, how I wear my hair. My hair is wet right now, so it's still a little, she's a little loose, but I have, like, tighter type 4 hair, and it's been a journey for me with that in comparison to some of my family members. Um, but I think the interesting thing about, I think my family shows really well that Latino people are a mix of a million different things. My grandmother looks white. Um, my mom is like in between, lighter skinned. I have an uncle who's very fair skinned. I have other uncles who are more on the darker skin side, more like hair texture. And I just think it's so cool to kind of see the wide range of what being Latino means, even within my own family. Um, and that has been a lot of fun and hard at the same time, because I think growing up so ingrained into my Latin culture, I really miss some of the core parts of my black identity and who I am and how I present to the world. Because especially when I was younger, I really thought that like, you know, that like, oh, I don't know what I thought, to be honest. I thought maybe I didn't, bec- to be honest, because of like internalized racism and colonization and the people around me, of like, I didn't think I presented as a little black girl to the world. And as I, now that I'm older and I look at pictures of myself, I'm like, there's no way you can't tell um, that I was like this girl. And I used to um, spend a lot of time like trying to change my hair and straightening my hair. And I think every person kind of goes through that phase, but I really went hard on it for a long time, um, because of kind of internalized things and, you know, messages being told that your hair is like too hard to deal with or whatever. And I love my hair now. I love her. She's beautiful. She's grown a lot. I used to. I say I was bald. I wasn't bald. I 3 years ago I chopped off all my hair, started fresh, and I used to have hair down in like my bra strap. I mean, I do now too. She is growing, but it just looks different, and I think that's part of me embracing who I am. But I think going back to like childhood, I think one of the biggest challenges for me was that I lived in like three worlds, is what I'm trying to say. Is that like I went to school in a predominantly white school. I literally was the only black kid in my grammar school. I was there from K through 8, the only black kid that entire time I was there. And I think in that time, I internalized a lot of like I experienced so much bullying of like, and they might not say it's bullying, but it's like I was the kid that was different. I couldn't wear my hair the way the other girls could wear their hair. They would try to braid my hair, and then they'd be like, "It's too hard," and that really hurt my feelings because, first of all, my hair is braidable. It just needed some water and like the right comb. I couldn't. My friends would kind of make fun of me for wearing bonnets to sleep because I wanted to protect my hair. I remember one time I was getting relaxers in high school. This is jumping a little bit, but to high school, and I forgot what I told this girl one time. She was getting on my nerves, and she told me back, word for word, she was like, "I'll snatch that relaxer off your head." First of all, why? Why would you say that to someone? But in that moment, I was like, she was a white girl too. I was like, that is such a, like later, after I thought about it, I was like, that is such a weird weird thing to say. One, my hair wasn't relaxed at the time. I had beautiful long tresses, okay? Um, but that's how she kind of expressed her microaggressions. I think, actually, now I'm saying that was like very much a macro racist thing to say. Um, but yeah, it was just those kinds of experiences, and I always, I've always been really tall. I'm 6 feet tall. I'm a thicker girl. When I was younger, I wasn't as thick as I am now, but um, I wasn't getting the same attention from the boys. The boys didn't really like me. I was, I was kind of always friend zoned, or I don't know, and that really didn't help my self esteem. So I didn't really try my appearance, and I don't know. There's just a lot of things that really affected me negatively that I can't really put into words how that makes you feel and how that kind of builds on your low confidence or low self esteem. But then when I entered high school, I got my braces off, so I had like my beautiful smile that I have. I I met three. I met my best friend my freshman year, um, who is probably my forever friend. Like she's amazing, and two of my other best friends. But I think what was key in these friendships is that it's diverse. Um, we're of all different backgrounds, races, ethnicities, first gen, all this stuff, and I think that really helped me with loving myself. And I realized after putting some time into myself is that I wasn't ugly. I was just around. In comparison, I was the only black girl because, and then in high school, where it got way. This is crazy to say that my high school was way more diverse because it wasn't, but it was way more diverse than the school I was previously at. And I started to get more attention from boys, particularly black boys, and I was like, wait a second, maybe I'm not ugly. I'm just around the wrong people. And then like my junior year, which I think I really grew into myself and I started becoming more confident and really loving myself, my skin, my hair, spending more time taking care of myself. And then I got more attention and I was like, okay, I'm just around the wrong people. And then I went to college and I was like, I was definitely around the wrong people. I just needed to be around people that could recognize the beauty in my Afro features and in who I am. And that's been amazing. I really love those times, but there was also a lot of like self doubt and like self, deprecation. This still happens today. Like sometimes if my hair isn't the way I want it, and so this is something I've been kind of working through. Is like, particularly with hair, of the idea of like, my hair doesn't need to be defined. It doesn't need to be straight. It doesn't need to be perfect. It could look however it wants to look that day, and that's okay. That is totally fine, and I'm still beautiful. I'm not ugly because of that. But I think I spent so much time internalizing a lot of messages from family members, from kids around me that I was ugly or that my hair was, I don't know, and it really just fed into um, that kind of idea of myself. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's been interesting, definitely. I think the problem with this is that we don't have like a history. We do have a history of what it means to be Afro-Latino. We don't talk about it enough because within Latino culture, there is this idea of colorism, texturism, classism, all the isms, ageism, everything you can think of, and I we don't really deviate in my family. We don't really deviate from those norms too much, so I think it's hard to when we haven't talked about what it means, where we come from, who we are, that how can we accept who we are in this moment? Because we don't even know where we came from. And like, as I mentioned before, I don't think if I mentioned this before, I don't know if I have, but like, if we're talking about history and ideas of like, particularly for me, I'm talking for me as a Puerto Rican. Puerto Rico is in the Caribbean, and in the 1800s, when they were transporting slaves from Africa, Puerto Rico was like a pit stop, like a slave. It was a slave port. So there was a lot of African settlements. A lot of people stayed there because they weren't shipped to America, and they became, slaves in Puerto Rico, or they became sugarcane field workers. And in the process of that, they created another mix of people because Puerto Rico was colonized by Spain, for example. Then we add this African culture, and then prior to all of this, there was already indigenous people living there. So Puerto Ricans are a combination of all these different things, but we don't recognize the part that I don't know how to describe that part of us of being African, to be honest, and being what the Afro and Afro-Latino means, um, and kind of where how do we accept that? Because I think one of the biggest problems that I have is with brown people in general, and like some people I interact with is like brown people try to there is a separation between brown and black people, but I think there's a miscommunication with brown people of understanding that a lot of the things we have are on the backs of black people, and we worked in our own right when we're talking about immigration and stuff like that. But some of this, like I said, when you present to the world with just your skin color, you represent to the others a black person. So for you to not accept that, maybe embrace it and love yourself for that, that is hurtful to yourself, your community, and I don't know. For me, it's a hard thing for me to really come to terms with. That some people aren't comfortable with being black or whatever the case may be, and I mean, I know why that is, as you know, racism and being colonized and all these ideas, but like being black is amazing. I would not, I would not want to be anything else. That's completely honest. Would not want to be anything else. I love who I am. I love how I look. I love what I have become. So I don't know how some people kind of don't come. I mean, I get how they don't come. It takes a lot of work, but I don't know. I think we need to promote more self love and more kind of education to be honest about like who we are, where we come from, because you definitely might be. I mean, the melanin came from somewhere. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm gonna kind of say on that because. And then when you look at like now I'm getting on a rant because my grandma watches my grandma watches Telemundo and Univision like on repeat. The only two channels she watches. Every person on the telenovelas, on the like newscasting, light skin, straight hair, like this like European beauty idea that we keep perpetuating. So now we have generations of people who have watched these shows that that's all they've internalized. They're like, the only way I'm going to be famous or I could be somebody or be successful is if I look like this. That's not true necessarily. Like you could look however you however you want. You could if you look different, that is also okay. But I think that's hard for people to get. And even thinking of my own family, like my grandma, when I wear braids, I think I no, when I got locks, butterfly locks last summer, and I took them off, and she told me, my grandma told me after I took them off, she was like, "Oh, I like that much better. It was too much on your, it was it was ugly. It was too much." Like, and I don't know what to say to that because I don't. She's 82. There's so many things there. Um, I don't know. It's kind of hard to also be the one to be like, hey, grandma, that was kind of maybe sort of actually possibly racist and prejudiced. But she don't even she might not understand how that might be because sometimes for other people, racism has to be blatantly calling you a slur, blatantly calling you a name, you know, attacking your people versus these small jabs. Um, yeah, I don't know. It's definitely hard, but it's been a journey. I think yeah, it's definitely been hard, but I love myself enough to not really care what other people think about me. And I think that is very hard to get to, but it is, again, very liberating, very freeing, very beautiful. So, what it means to be an Afro Latina? What does it mean to me? I I think I've talked about representation and the importance of representation a lot, but I a lot of people. Well, I'm gonna say let's talk about school first. So graduate school, only black person. When they found out I was Latin, on top of that, they were like, gas. My name is Jessica, and I guess if your name doesn't sound Latin enough, that might not be, you know, what they're looking for. Or your last name. I had one time. This is in my research lab again. they were doing they were trying to design a study in Spanish, and they needed people to test the Spanish side of things. And I was like, oh, I could do it. Like, that's fine. And the person who was leading the project was like, you speak Spanish? I'm like, I'm not wearing it right now, but I wear a Puerto Rican flag. Like, I'm not wearing it for fun. I have a bracelet that I wear. Um, I don't like, I, I don't know why I have to wear my identity, like, whatever. And he was like, oh, you speak Spanish? And I was like, yeah, read, write, understand, speak, everything. And he was like, oh, I thought you were a no Sabo kid. And I was like, why is that? He's like, oh, I don't know, just because of your name. Because of my name? Like, what do you want me to be named? I don't understand but then we associate names and things with whiteness and all this other stuff. And the way I talk. He told me the way I talk. Whatever that means. And I was like, no, I grew up, like, I've lived with my grandma and my mom for a very long time, and my grandma speaks minimal English, so I've learned a lot of Spanish from that. And then when I was younger, my mom also spoke a lot of Spanglish, so I've picked up the language very fast, and it's everywhere. It's like kind of hard to like get away from in my life. So there's situations like that, and then he didn't want me after I offered to do it, he didn't want me to do it. I was like, because you think I don't whatever. I don't understand that, but there's kind of instances of that. This one time, this was at school too. A person had asked me again because of my name, and kind of I wear a lot of like Black Lives Matter stuff and all that kind of all those things. And one time somebody asked me, I forgot what we were. I was talking to another person, and we were talking about being Latino and all this stuff, and the girl, the other person that wasn't in the conversation, crucially was not in the conversation, was like, "Oh, Jess, like you're Latino," and I'm like, "Yeah," and she's like, "Oh, I didn't see that. I wasn't getting that from you. Do you want me to pull a plantain out of my ass? Like, I don't understand what does that mean? Like, what does it mean? I don't get that from you. I don't know what that means. I don't know how that looks. Um, yeah. Um, school, yeah, school. I have many more examples, but there's one time at the gym. Okay, no, I have two. I think I have two examples from like outside stuff. So I went to there's like a grocery store by my house. It's a Mexican grocery store. Has some bomb ass carnitas, tacos. I go like maybe 3 times a week because it's so good. But recently, I went to order at it's like a deli area, and I told her what I wanted, and she looked at me. Told her in Spanish, and she looked at me and she said, "You speak good Spanish for a black girl." Girl, please. I was so taken aback. I didn't even have a response. I was just like, "Can I just have my food?" Like, I don't. It's too early in the morning for this. I don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't even know how to respond to that. Um, when I told like my cousins and my mom, they're like, "You should have told her, bitch. Put the fuck." I was like, "Y'all need to calm down." I don't think it was that serious, but there's always instances like that. There's one time I was at the gym. My gym is also it's a woman owned it's not women it's women owned, but there's a lot of Latino women that go there, a lot of older women. And this one time, this woman, she was taking up too much space, and she was Spanish speaking, and I had just asked her to move a little bit because she was in my bubble, unlike people in my space. Especially when I'm working out, like it's kind of weird that you want to like kind of be like on top of someone like that. I don't know, but anyway, one thing leads to another. She got bitchy with me. Her daughter ended up kind of pulling her away, and she was calling me all sorts of slurs in Spanish, related to my blackness. And I responded to her. I'm like, "What? Who are you talking to? Who are you talking about? Who are you talking to? First of all, I don't care how old you are. Like, I please don't talk about me." and um, and she was like, "Oh, I didn't know you like spoke Spanish. All this stuff." I was like, "Yep, I do. Yeah, yeah. Thanks." And so I kind of got on her about that a little bit. And she's like, "Do you like how does your grandmother feel that you talking to me like this? I said, my grandma would beat your ass too. Is that what you want to hear? Like, what are you talking about right now? So I think it's interesting the kind of how people, the way people, this is why I say, I've said repeatedly this time, is like your skin color, your features, how you look, sometimes, I mean, not sometimes, almost all the time is the first impression people have of you. So when you kind of don't accept that you are a little Afro black looking, it could be a little difficult to kind of, I wouldn't say grow past, but embrace, because people are going to talk about you, they're going to say shit about you, they're going to have so many things to say, and sometimes those things aren't very nice. I think I've talked a lot about being Latina and not as much about being black. And I think that's kind of the story of my life, to be honest. Um, I love being black. I love being who I am. I love the way I look. I love the way I talk. I love my name. I love my name so much that when I get married, I am not changing my name. I refuse. um, I I love being a black woman. I love being around other black women. I think one of the greatest things that this has, being a black Latina and not growing up in my black culture really, has kind of allowed me to do my own self discovery. And in that, I found spaces where I feel comfortable, spaces where I feel safe. I found my people. I met a lot of my best friends in high school and college that are black women that really uplift me and help me. Um, and I don't know what I would do without them, to be honest. And I've met in professional settings different black women, and it's been really amazing, and it's really come to help me merge my two identities and kind of be who I am and who I want to be. And I think it's really helped me embrace who I am. Like, I think you could love Latinos and you could love, like, soul food, and you could love all those things and still be, like, you don't have to choose one or the other. And I think that took me kind of a while to realize, because I was like, either I have to be this or I have to be that. And I think I've realized they work together very well. And part of working together very well is me accepting that these are both part of me, and I can't really. Sorry, my hair's like stuck to my neck. I can't really choose one or the other. What I can do is embrace both of them and see how I could really merge them and really, really love them. Like, I think in the last 2 years, I've really, 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 really have embraced it. I'm actually looking at a picture, my college graduation picture. It's a really cool picture. I'm wearing my stoles for graduation, and it says Black Girl Magic, and then on top of it, I'm placing, um, not on top, I'm like, because I wore both stoles at once, but I have the Puerto Rican flag on as well, and I'm kind of like, it's just a really cool picture. Um, I don't know, and I feel like that's very representative of how I've kind of merged these identities. Um, and I really love them, and I love myself, and I love the people around me who accept me for how I am and how I present, how I act, how I talk. Um, I've been called exotic before too. My name is Jessica. Not too much exotic about that. I don't even know what that means, to be honest. There's a lot of things that have been said to me. I'm still trying to figure out what the fuck they mean, because who are you talking to? It can't be me. There's no way it's me. And yeah, and I think in me accept. Sorry, that was a little tangent, but I think in me accepting who I am and who I want to be, I've made a lot of more genuine friendships and relationships around me. I found people that have really embraced who I am and really love me for me. That's been great. I've kind of helped some of my, you know, other members of my family members and stuff who maybe weren't feeling that way before really lean into that. And that's been really cool. That has been really cool. But I think it's so important for, like, for us as a society to recognize that there are these intersectionalities in identity, and you really don't have to pick one or the other. You could be like, you can be whoever you want to be, but I strongly, strongly recommend embracing all of who you are, because all of who you are is what makes you unique and special and different. And who wants to be the same? I don't want to be like anybody else. Like I said, I do not want to be anybody else but myself. I don't want to be any other race, ethnicity. I love being black. I love being Latin, and I love me. But again, lots of therapy, lots of self-talk, lots of journaling, lots of trying new things, putting myself out there, trying new spaces, and being okay with that. And I think I've really, really, I've enjoyed it a lot. And I think this kind of journey of self-discovery has been amazing for me. Yeah, I think I think that's kind of where I want to end today. So I want to thank you for coming with me on this beautiful journey of what it means to be Afro-Latina, Black Latina, Latin. Does anybody say Latina Black? I don't know if people say that. I think something that I want to say is that, it's my roots are my rhythm, my history is my strength, and my identity is my pride. And if there's one thing I hope you take away from today, it's that, and for the new year, to be honest, it's that embracing all parts of yourself, your story, your culture, and your heritage is a revolutionary act of self love. It's probably the best way you can love on yourself and really, really, really express that. Because I know self love could be hard, but sometimes it's as simple as looking in the mirror and saying, I like you. So, I'd love to hear, I think I would kind of love to hear other people's thoughts, experiences, or reflections on this topic. So I hope we can keep this conversation going and maybe have a part two to this and talk more about maybe history context, historical context, or professional historical context, all that fun stuff. Um, yeah, but just letting you guys know, you can connect with me on Instagram or share your story with me via TikTok. My handle for both is soul_sessions podcast. And yeah, so until next time, remember to walk with confidence, move to your own rhythm, and always own your roots. Bye.